Hello, nerdy neighbors. Welcome back to the Nerdy Neighborhood, and welcome back to your Friendly Neighborhood Comic Show. I'm your host, Lauren, your Friendly Neighborhood Bi, and I'm here tonight with indie comic creator Kevin Maher, who is here to talk about his book coming out soon, Toxic Man. How are you, Kevin?
I am good. It's been a long day, but I am happy to be there.
I hear you. I hear you. Well, we're actually doing this on a new comic book day, a Wednesday, and I haven't touched my comics other than getting them from the store.
Right.
So I feel behind, and I also haven't done last week's, which usually I'm like, I can be a week behind, but then I catch up. I'm struggling this week.
I usually keep a stack just next to my bed, and I just pile it back on. And, you know,
I have a stack behind here, and it's actually on a Superman box, and it needs to be a strong box because the stack just keeps getting bigger and bigger every time.
Yeah, they never shrink. It just keeps growing.
No, unfortunately, every time I think I'm making a dent in it, something else gets on the stack, whether it's a gift from somebody, which is amazing, or something random I got at the store that I didn't expect to get. It always happens. Or a new recommendation, which is great, but I feel like the second you ask for comic recommendations, you have a list that goes on for 85 years at least.
And usually I buy trades, so then you put the trade on, and then you start that, and it takes like weeks. And then it just piles.
Yeah, I swear that's half my stack, because I have some trades in there. I have trades that I want to log and possibly read. I probably should read them because I haven't read it yet. But I'm also like, do I have the time? I don't know.
No, I know. I read every night. That's when I read it, like right before bed, and I try to like get at least like one issue in a trade done a night, just so I can.
That's awesome. I've been working on trying to switch up my like bedtime routine, like before I get to sleep. I've noticed that the past month or two, I've been on my phone a lot before bed.
Oh,
I'll read on my phone, but it's not the same. And since I have a stack, I'm like, I need to switch to like read an issue or a couple issues of comics and then fall asleep rather than scroll through TikTok or even reading comics digitally is different for your eyes, I used
to read on an iPad and I used to read Comixology all the time. Like I had switched for a little while to digital, and it totally just messes with your sleep pattern. Like now I just read print, and I like fall asleep very quickly right after. But using the phone, using the iPad, it totally messes you up. I end up staying up for like at least an extra hour when I just do that. So
yeah, that's it. That's exactly what I've heard, and I've kind of been feeling it lately. So I'm like, I gotta get the sleep together. Get together.
Print and right before bed, and usually I stick to one or two issues in two different trades, and that's it. And then I go to bed.
Oh, nice. Well, it's good that you kind of like flip-flop between trades so that you don't get bored of either one, possibly.
I don't like to burn through things because I like to like savor some of them. Like I'm reading the Booster Gold and Blue Beetle.
Nice
trade I just picked up. I know I don't know how long it's been out. I'm never updated. I just pick up stuff when I see it, and I like those characters so much. I don't want to burn through it, so I like I make sure I only read one book. I'm like, all right, this will last a good 8 to 10 days, so I can like thoroughly enjoy it.
Yeah, no, I think that's the way you do it. That's one thing I kind of don't like about the way I enjoy content sometimes is I'll get hooked on it and I'll feel the need to instantly binge it. But then afterwards I'm like, why? I know better. Like I know that one episode at a time is great, or 1-2 issues and then read more later is it's just getting in that habit. So like at least somebody here has a good habit with comic reading. Like I feel like that's great. If you get through 1 or 2, 4 total issues a night every night. That's fantastic. Like you have your life together, Kevin.
Well, I don't know about that, but well, I do with TV shows too. Like people who binge everything. I like watch like 2 episodes. I'm like, all right, I'm done. I want to savor it.
Yeah, no, and you know what? The one show I've done that with recently was Andor, and that was half unwillingly of me and half willingly because I just got busy and stuff at the time, so I didn't get to watch it. But I really loved taking the time to get through it more, and that show, especially once you get for the first 3 episodes, it's worth like waiting each episode. Like you can binge the first 3, I think, of that show, but past that, 1 episode every once in a while really feeds that kind of slow burn the show has. It's really great. So
yeah, I enjoyed that one too. Yeah, and I did savor I did the same thing. I like watch it once a week or whatever, and I'm gonna do it with The Mandalorian when it comes out soon, the next season. yes, I am very, very excited for that. Well, your comic is coming out February 22nd.
It's called Toxic Man, and it's a 48-page comic, which is really cool because you don't always see that lengthiness in one issue.
Right.
So tell us, what is Toxic Man about?
So, Toxic Man was a character I created in high school, actually. I'm kind of like Eric Larson did with Savage Dragon. I loved comics so much as a kid that I just made millions and millions and millions of characters. I'm sure that everybody did, but this was one design I kept for so long. I think I still have one of the original drawings in like my closet somewhere. And I just morphed them through the years. When I was younger, I thought I was going to make all these serious comics and like these epic battles and things. But as I got older, I started to drift towards more funnier books. I read a lot. I read a lot of Mad Magazine as a kid. I read a lot of newspaper funny strips and stuff. So like Gru, the old Justice Leagues, the Kevin Maguire, Keith Giffen ones. And I gravitated towards a lot of that stuff and a lot of humor. So Toxic Man, I morphed when I wrote this story. I wanted him to be not typical superhero fare. I wanted it to be a funnier book, but I wanted him to be not the typical, I have a 6-pack of abs and I can go fight supervillains. He's a washed up, old, middle-aged superhero. They say write what you know the best. Well, I'm an old middle-aged man, so and who drinks a lot of beer. And that's what he is. He's an old middle-aged man. His fame is past. That's now his autograph's worth nothing. Like if he shows up at a Comic-Con, he's old news. Like there's other new heroes now. And he's trying to put his life back together in a funny way. So basically the adventures of him and all his little superhero buddies. His sidekick ends up getting murdered, and he has to figure out. And after his sidekick gets murdered, people start coming after him. All these supervillains start coming out of the woodwork, and he has to figure out why they're coming after him. But he's half in the bag half the time, so he doesn't know what's going on. He's completely inept. And so that's the adventure, really. It's just him on his journey of trying to pick up the pieces of being just a failure of a superhero and trying to get back on the horse. So it's not serious. it's a lot of goofy humor, a lot of parody. Like there's a parody of like Superman in there. There's a parody of like there's one of the villains that like is a parody of a Star Trek character. So there's stuff like that. So,
I saw the red shirt and I was like, that looks like Star Trek. I enjoy this. so yeah, that's basically it. I kept it. I did it 48 pages. It was long. As your first solo book, you don't realize like, oh, I should only be making 22 pages. I mean, after doing web comics for a while, I did a web comic for like 5 years, so I figured I could handle it. But I did all the lettering, all the writing, all the ink, like everything. I worked traditionally. I colored in Photoshop, but everything else was, Oh, wow. So you had to like scan that stuff in and everything.
Yeah, the big old scanner over here. Yeah, I do everything. It took me a little longer, so it's 48 pages. I work traditionally. It's my first one doing the lettering and everything by myself, so it took a lot longer than I thought it would. But I'd like to keep a lot of my comics self-contained. I hate when I get a new issue of a comic, like an indie comic or something, a Kickstarter I've never heard of, and the book is great. So I just got one recently, and I thought the book was awesome. I'm like, oh man, I want the second issue, and the second issue might not come out for like another 2 years. So that always frustrates me because I'm a completionist kind of guy, and I like things to be like finished. I'm like, all right, that was good. I read it. It was great. So I want to keep a lot of this specific comics adventures in self-contained. So the first issue, you can just read it and then put it down, and you don't even need to get another issue or anything if you don't like it, or if you like it, you can wait. Like it doesn't matter. So like the next issue can come out, and if you haven't never read the first one, it's fine. You can just pick up the second one. I always had a problem with that in comics when I was younger, so I always like the self-contained stuff. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I know for me personally, that's kind of frustrating too. Sometimes, especially with Kickstarters, where we get a comic and then 2-3 years later, we might, get the opportunity for the second issue or what have you. And that's not true of all. Like, there are Kickstarters that some people, they're running 2 or 3 a year to get these issues out of their series, which is amazing. It's also a ton of work on their end. So like, I'm super grateful, but yeah, but that is so much. So I think if that's not your thing, or if it's like, yeah, that's too unmanageable, I don't think that's fair to me or my readers, then yeah, that's a great option too, to think, hey, I can make self-contained stories, tell complete stories in one issue, and then if I want to, branch off with them again years later, I can of course do that. But otherwise, there's still a complete story for people. So I think it's great that it sounds like you kind of found that balance, and you're also okay with those creators, because I know sometimes for creators that's a huge sacrifice on their end, to do something like that.
It is. It's just a lot of time, especially working full time. This full-time commute, everything else involved, and you're like, all right, I got to work on, my own stuff. Yeah. And it's just, I just thought it was a good idea. I mean, I probably won't do that with all the books I want to do. I have like a million other ideas I want to do, but I think specifically when I'm first doing my own solo stuff, that I think I want to keep it all self-contained, just to make it easy.
Oh, absolutely. And, I think doing some of your own self-contained and also some complete comics on your own, kind of, over time, you can kind of learn like, hey, what aspects of comics do I like the most? Or do I really like everything? And do I need to do everything myself every single time? That's something that definitely, I think, can change the comics game, I think, for a creator, is realizing, hey, collaboration is amazing for me, and here's how I know how to do it. Or some people are like, I'm not a collaboration person, and so there's pros and cons to both sides.
There is, and I know, I mean, I've always been told to do your first solo stuff, do everything. I mean, I've been part of other books where I've done just the logo, I've done just the illustration or the penciling. A couple of anthologies I did like, just all the art. I didn't do any of the writing or lettering or anything like that. So I've been privy to those parts, but when I get them later, I'm like, oh, I wanted to change like all this stuff in it. Yeah. So I thought I need to do it myself. I want to see how difficult it is for every part. I found actually the coloring the most time consuming thing. I think next time I might hire a colorist, because I found that one to be the one that just took the most time.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And it's good that you have that insight. And I would agree, like, again, I'm not a comic creator, so everybody take my thoughts with a grain of salt, but like, that makes a lot of sense, as in, hey, if you're making a comic, you should attempt to do everything at some point if you can, because then again, you understand each piece in a general sense enough, right? So even if you end up focusing more on the writing or the coloring or lettering or art in the future, you have a general understanding, because that's only gonna make you better at comics, to understand every piece and be able to even do it on some scale.
I don't even know how some people do. Like, I was writing it as I was lettering it half the time. I was doing it all mixed together, but I mean, it's definitely a more learning experience, but it definitely helped me do every part of it, and I'm excited to do more. So,
Yeah, no, 100%. And I did want to ask or talk about this little letter you have at the front of the issue before we even get into anything. You talk about how, you discovered comics yourself, and you talked about kind of how you ended up getting into making a first comic and, kind of pursuing your dream finally after all this time. I really enjoyed reading it, because I feel like, I don't know, it added more to the story, even though the story isn't your story that you talk about here in the letter. It just seemed to add more feeling to it, I think, which is amazing.
Well, thank you. That means a lot. But, I mean, it is. I mean, I started out, loving comics, and I thought that was going to be my dream. I went to art school. I ended up trying to do it right out of school, and I was like, I gotta pay rent. So I ended up going back to school for graphic design, and I started doing, first I started doing web comics. I had a web comic for about 5 or 6 years. It was kind of basically like me in, crazy situations and things like that. It was like a caricature. And that didn't do very well. So I did that for a number of years, but then after I started to talk to comic creators, Erica Schultz, she gave me some contacts. She actually let me do some logos for her. I've known her for like 30 years. So some of the logos I ended up doing was like my kind of backdoor into comics. And I got to talk to a lot more creators, and I got to learn a lot more about the process and Kickstarters and things like this. And it really opened a lot of doors for me, being because I was a graphic designer. So it was natural. And it was a good opportunity. Doing Forgotten Home logo. I've done stuff like, I don't know if you've ever read the Murky Waters anthology. I did a logo for that. I did Bingo Love from Image Comics.
Oh,
logo.
yeah. I love that one.
Yeah, I did that logo too. I did a couple more of Eric's stuff. I did some, and I've done some penciling in like a couple of anthologies for Red Stylo. They did a 27 Rock anthology. I did a story in that with a good writer, Jed McPherson. So, I was always on fringes and like bouncing around. I'm like trying to get my foot in the door here and there. I used to go to all the cons. I like did all the top cow talent searches. I would try to go to editors, at these cons and stuff, and drop my portfolio off. There's so many people doing that. If you're not the next gym lead, because a lot of the times they don't seem to care that much. So I eventually came to the conclusion, just do it myself. I think the indie comics ended up I've been reading a lot more indie comics in the last 10 years, and I think they blow a lot of the mainstream stuff out of the water now. I just think the creators are 10 times so much better. That's not cranked out. They take the time with the stories. They're so different. They're so original. The art styles are so crazy. So it really has opened my eyes to like this whole world, and it's really cool.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with the indie stuff. I will always be a Marvel gal because that's kind of what I knew first with the X-Men. But no, the indie comics are insane, and there's so many different genres. Like, comic books are stereotypically superheroes and such, which is great. Like, again, I love superheroes. I think a lot of people know that. Yeah. But it's so cool that comics, it's a medium. It's not just like, here's a superhero, bam, pow, woohoo, save the day.
Yeah.
There's so many more layers, I think, to comics now that have kind of evolved over time, and it's really great. And the indie scene, I think, is really shining. The only thing is, how can we get that scene to shine and also make the money to support that? Because unfortunately, in America, where we are now, capitalism reigns.
I know.
Which is unfortunate for us.
And that's why we all have day jobs.
God, you are telling me, man. Yeah. I'm tired of the day job. I'm tired.
Me too.
I like this.
And mine's art, and I'm still like, oh my God. I'm
right? That's the thing, and that's the thing about passion and things like that. But I did, with the comic itself and with the characters, that's one thing that really stood out to me was these characters you created. Even though this is Toxic Man's story, 100%, it a lot of times felt like an ensemble story. And I really enjoyed that because, again, it's still one character story that isn't lost, but at the same time, I enjoy these other characters so much that that's what brought me into this world. It's not even just the main character story and how I might feel towards Toxic Man. It's these other characters that have all kinds of different personalities. Where did you get these characters, and kind of like they're all kind of like caricatures or something in reality?
The mentor of him, of Toxic Man, Smolder, he's an older guy. He's like my little parody of Captain America type. I actually created him as a kid as well. So
he's right here, folks. He's right here.
Yeah, he's got the little wings on the helmet. Yeah. So all my characters have vices. They're not typical. They're not goody two shoes. They're all kind of very flawed. So Toxic Man's borderline. He drinks way too much. The mentor Smolder, his superpowers are smoke, but he smokes like cigars constantly. There's another character. There's called Ultimate Man. He's like the parody of the Superman-esque.
Oh, he cracked me up because it's like the complete opposite of what any of us would want in Superman. Has all these great powers and everything, but it's just completely vain and social media.
Completely obsessed with social media. Doesn't want, like, that's all he cares about. People could be dying. He's like, live stream. That's what he wants to do. They're all, so I made them all like flawed. I wanted them all because regular people are flawed. Like everybody is something. Like, so even though they're comedy parody things, but they all have problems. They all got, they're not a lot of them are in shape.
Right. Yeah.
So, I just thought that's more real, even in a funny book, that's more realistic to me, that they have all these problems. And like, it kind of goes back to the title, like Toxic Man. That's his powers. He has these toxic gas powers, and he wears like this hazmat-esque suit. But he's got a toxic personality. And they all kind of do in a way, but the whole story is a little bit of a redemption for a lot of them. So in my opinion, and I like ensemble books because we spoke before, like we both love X-Men. That was one of the main things that got me into comics as a kid. I love team books. I'm obsessed with G.I. Joe. And all these big teams and like picking specialists, and like you can have adventures. You can have comics for a million years and never have the same character. You have all kinds of different characters. So I love that, and I love to have like a supporting cast of like a bunch of people. It's not just one guy. Like always, like whenever I read Spider-Man or Daredevil and stuff, it's like, there's like a girlfriend or maybe like Foggy Nelson over here, but I like a big cast to play with.
Yeah, I kind of agree, actually, now that you mention that, because I'm currently reading the current Daredevil run, which has been great. The Zdarsky's writing and all that, but it doesn't feel the same. Like, when there's a really fantastic Daredevil issue, and I'm like, wow, this is great, which it is, it doesn't hit the same as, like, a great X-Men book. You know what I mean? Like, or, like, even, like, a great Justice League book. Like, I'm not the biggest Justice League fan, but one of the last Justice League stories I read was Justice League The Last Ride. I think that was Zdarsky as well. But that was phenomenal. That was a limited series, and I adored that because it was such a well-written team book. So you do such a great job of balancing out both having a main protagonist still with an ensemble to give all this support. I think there's somebody for everybody in this book. Like there's characters that, some people will hate, and there's characters that people will love. Sure. And they'll vary depending on the person. Like when you mentioned that Smolder here is like a mix, your Captain America. I was like, he's like Captain America and Dum Dum Dugan for me. Like he's got both. That's hilarious. Like who would have thought to put those two together?
Right.
And one villain that I thought was hilarious who's in the story, Lineage, and he at one point, or I think our main character here, Toxman, said, no one likes time-based villains.
No.
That was hilarious to me, considering, and it just hit timely because the Flash trailer came out.
Oh my God, that's right.
You got the Flash ending soon on the CW and all this stuff. So I just thought that was hysterical to me because I was like, man, either Flash fans are going to be really upset at this if they read it, or they're going to laugh and be like, yep, you're not wrong, man. Like, I love our Flash, but
that all stems back to when Cable and all them appeared in X-Men, and I was like, what is happening? I didn't like everybody was from a different timeline. It was so frustrating.
Yeah, and that's the thing, the timeline stuff too. I feel like there's stuff that is more enjoyable, or people from different timelines are more enjoyable than others, but I feel like the ones that are less enjoyable, at least for me, get the most attention, and I'm like, boo hiss, I don't want it.
Yeah, I mean, I like multi-dimensional like stories where they like take different versions of characters, like Kingdom Come and things like that, but I always get frustrated at time. I'm like, oh, it's another time story where they go back to fix it's something.
Yeah, no, 100%. But I love that because I wouldn't mention that quote without spoiling too much, but that quote was even more enjoyable by the end of this book. I thought it was really well done. How you kind of I don't know, like you kind of you talk about how this is like hilarious and a parody of a lot of things, which it is. And it's almost like you kind of parody your own writing within itself. It's so well done. And I really love funny comics because it's so hard, I feel like, to do a funny comic for some reason. I don't know why, or if it's just because people don't want to do them, but they're not mainstream. Like, I can't even tell you the last, like, truly, like, comedy or funny based comic, like, from mainstream, like, including Image. I'll include Image, big three. I can't tell you the last funny comic I've read from, like, just any of those publishers.
There's not a lot. I mean, that's why I like reference the Justice League a lot for Keith Giffen. Like they were like the funny comic when I was growing up. Like that was it. Like that was. I mean, there was always Mad Magazine, but those things tend to be like over ridiculous. They're more like SNL skits. Like they're not. There's not a story there. Like, but I mean, I gravitated a lot towards like characters like Lobo and stuff when it's just over the top ridiculous and it's not serious. So like, but there aren't a lot. I read a lot of Sergio Aragone's, however you pronounce that, I probably butchered his name. But that's like a funny comic that's been around for a million years, and I always find it ridiculously hilarious. It's just silly. It's just drawn in this cartoony style. But there's not a lot. I don't find a lot. And except for, you know, the recent Blue and Gold, Booster Gold and Blue Beetle stuff that I just started reading. But a lot of the stuff that I have on my table and things, none of them are really in the humorous tone. And I mean, that's why I like Marvel movies, because it's like a good story, but then they always have the funny characters in them. And that's what any movie, any TV show, if you ask me who my favorite characters are, it's always the funny one. Like, I like Star Wars a lot, but my favorite characters are R2-D2 and C-3PO. I mean, he's ridiculous. You know, in Guardians of the Galaxy, it's Drax. Like, it's just, I like the funny characters. That's just what I gravitate towards.
Yeah, no, and I love that you mentioned that, because, you know, there always is and always will be debates about the Marvel films, and are they really good? Do they suck? Whatever. But I agree, like, I like comedy in almost everything, because that's just part of the joy of life, is finding stuff funny, enjoying things and laughing. So watching films that completely lack things like that, like they're completely drama or they're completely horror or something, they're really hard for me. I like can watch one or two and then I'm done for like 3 months. Like I'll be like, I'll go back to my action comedy adventures and my rom-coms. Like, I even want romance without funny. Like, if you can't laugh in a romance, what are you doing? Like, don't give me that drama.
I mean, I like animation too. Like, that's like my so all my favorite stuff is like Bob's Burgers, Family Guy, Rick and Morty, like Venture Brothers. Like, I like all this ridiculous parody jokes and funny stuff. I like Teen Titans Go, which a lot of people can't stand, but I think it's hilarious. I'm a grown man and I think it's the funniest thing I'm playing. No, and nothing wrong with that. And I think it's great that you kind of realize that about yourself. Like, you know what you enjoy and you embrace it despite what other people say, because you enjoying this isn't hurting anybody. It's not doing anything wrong or bad. It's just what you enjoy. Like, great. And that's what's so cool about comics, is that you can find what you enjoy and just enjoy it without having to trash, for lack of a way of saying it, everything or anything else, you know? And Toxic Man really feels like a celebration of embracing the silliness and the chaos and the parodies, even when there are some serious you know, undertones in this, like with the different habits and addictions people have, like the drinking and smoking, and at one point you even have, I couldn't tell if they were a vigilante or a villain, to be honest. I think that might be on purpose though, with the American Dream. So there was definitely some commentary. I caught that. I enjoyed that very much. So, I have a friend who said that was his favorite character. And he's like, he just saw a drawing of him and he was like, this is a great idea. This is fantastic. I love this.
Honestly, I think that's one of my favorite characters I've seen in a long time. That one completely took me by surprise. Like, it took me looking at the page back and forth multiple times, like the pages he's in, to be like, oh my God, did he do that? I was like, he totally did that. And it worked. Like, it's hard to argue against that, because anyway. So I really enjoyed all these other undertones you have throughout the issue, but at the end of the day, it is still parody, it's satirical, it's funny, you know exactly what it is, and you're not trying to make it something it isn't. You do such a great job with it. And honestly, your lettering, by the way, like, is phenomenal, especially those little boxes and you got the symbol there and everything. I know that sounds like meaningless to some people, but that is something you see in the big two that they do very well. You did everything yourself.
Yeah,
so, like,
and I mean
to everything, but I especially like that lettering just makes me so happy.
Good. Well, I'm glad, because I mean, being I'm graphic designer in the day, so I do a lot of this stuff, and I'm very nitpicky about a lot of it. But comic design is very different than the company corporate emails and things like that. So there was a lot of things that I had to like learn, pick up, read about, and like go back in. I had Erica look over it for me just to make sure that I was doing the correct stuff. So yeah, that was definitely a big learning experience, but I think I have a handle on it just because of my experience in design in general.
Yeah, no, it looks amazing. And I'm very picky about that as well, like just as a reader. And I feel kind of bad because especially with indie comics and like people's like earlier comics that they make, first few, the lettering is one of the things I think that is more often sacrificed, and not even sacrificed. I feel like that's kind of mean, but like it's a thing that in my opinion could use the most work, because once the lettering looks great, so many other things I think fall together. So this being your first comic, like this is absolutely phenomenal, and I just want to make sure you knew that because you worked so hard on all of this, and you did so much of it traditional, which is impossible nowadays. So you've done the impossible, Kevin.
Well, I got a couple more, hopefully a sequel in my brain working out on thumbnails right now. So, and I'm sure I got a couple more. I have like a list of characters I want to shove in there too. So.
Yes, please, more characters. I seriously, that was one of my favorite parts, is turning the page and be like, who's gonna show up next? Like, what can I expect? And I never got it right, which is perfect. So Toxic Man comes out February 22nd. It'll be on Global Comics, Amazon, and on your website, which is really cool for everybody to download, read, all that great stuff. And it is self-published by you, so that is huge. You know, is this just gonna be digital only for now? Will people be able to order physical copies?
I am waiting to. Well, I'm gonna see how it does digitally. But I think I have to adjust some of the art because it's digital. It doesn't have a lot of 2-page spreads or anything. Right. So in the comic, throughout the comic, there's this little pile of beer cans that tends to grow in the comic on the right-hand side. If I need to print it, I need to put it on both sides, so it's not always in the gutter. So I have to fix it, and once I do that, I think I might print some, and then see where I go from there. If I want to just go to cons with it or just sell it on my site, I haven't decided yet. So right now it's just digital, but I have print ideas in the works.
Awesome. No, that makes a ton of sense. And I think it's smart you're doing that rather than jumping in too quickly or things like that. Because it sounds like you're well aware, right, with just how you've made this comic and how you're, sourcing it out and everything. You want to know what you can handle in comics. You know what I mean? Like, don't attack what you're not ready for. Like, take the leap if you want to do the dream, obviously. But also know your limits and what you can do, because you will get there at some point. As long as you're working towards your goals, you will get there, but just make sure you have your stepping stones the way you need them to be.
And when I get to printing, I might add a lot more sketches in the back and like try to add like some of the sketches from when I was younger and throw them in there. I haven't decided. I mean, I got some advice from Matt Garvey. I got one of his recent comics, and printing was fantastic. And he told me where he got it printed, and I was like, oh man, I want to go there. It was like glossy, super nice. So when I do something like that, I want to get it done really, really done well. So and plus, I'm picky again, being in design. I'm like, I've done all the publishing for other brochures and things for companies. Yeah. So I kind of know where I am in that world. So that part is like super easy for me. And once I get it together, I'm okay.
Yeah, no, and that's exciting. Honestly, I think that gives readers a lot of confidence, because if they do read it digitally or they do want to print, and you're like, as long as it's getting attention and you guys want it, I can give it to you. That's not an issue. So that puts, I think that gives us more faith, and readers and fans more faith that like, oh, cool. So all I have to do is support it and like say I want a copy, and it's possible to get it done. Like, because that's half the concern with indie comics, I feel like, is just getting it printed and out there,
It's
that can be a big challenge. So if you're already have a strong suit in that, which you do clearly, then yeah, you have half the problem. Then it's just like, all right, peeps, just read it and let me know you like it.
Right. It's just money. That's what it is.
Yep.
It's just price on getting that stuff done. But I mean, a lot of people don't know, like, I'm sure a lot of other indie comic creators, like that's a foreign world to a lot of them. So they jump in and they're like, I want to get this printed, and they're like, oh God, where do I start? It's taken me years to get to a point where, that's just everyday learning. Like, it's something you can't just jump in. Like, it's hard.
Right.
You got to learn a lot, but I mean, it's doable. A lot of people do it, but there's a learning curve.
Yeah, no, 100%. Well, anything else you want to mention about Toxic Man before we wrap it up today?
No, I just hope everybody who is ever interested enjoys it, and feel free to leave me any messages or comments. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Discord, I'm on Hive. It's KM Comics and Toys. If you see my Twitter or any of these accounts, I post a lot of pictures of toys and stuff. It's a big toy collector, so it's not a weird account. That's not me. It's me.
No, that's totally fair. And honestly, I kind of love accounts that just post like pictures of action figures and toys.
Yeah, I do.
Because then I can just scroll and see pretty things and not worry about like seeing things that I'm like, no, like that's questionable. But no, I'm super excited, and I didn't even have to ask you to plug yourself. You were just ready, Kevin. So see, you have your life together. Kevin is the goal. Everyone be like Kevin.
Yes. Don't drink as much.
Well, Kevin, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate your time. I'm super excited for this book to come out. Everybody, again, it comes out February 22nd. The links will be in the description below. So you can just click a couple times and buy a great comic. Like, just click like 3 to 5 times and you're done. Like, what else could you want to do? Like, just click away. So yeah, support Kevin, support this book. I'm super excited to see what you do next, Kevin. Those of you guys watching, be sure to follow the show's Twitter at NBHD Comic Show. You can also join the Discord, which is linked through there if you'd like. Kevin, you are welcome to join the Discord as well. There's lots of causing chaos, causing chaos, but lots of extra connections to make as well. Great. And yeah, again, thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you guys next time in the nerdy neighborhood.